Hey, girlfriend, you know who you are. You have big, big dreams. You want to write a book, stand on a TED Talk stage, be a life coach offering wisdom from your RV in Montana, a cafe in Barcelona, or a beach chair in Tulum. Your other girlfriends and your family, they don't always get your biz savvy. Why do you want to leave your JOB? Because you're a C.A.T.S, aka coach, author, thought leader, and speaker. Meet other change makers like yourself and find out how they make it happen. This is the Big Meow podcast.
Hello, cats. It's Kristen, and I'm here with Michelle Fox. Hi, Michelle.
Hello, Kristen.
So you are a nutritionist extraordinaire, and you have a brand new book out. Tell us about your new book.
Oh my goodness, thanks for asking. I am so excited to share with my friends because I do not want my people suffering. And so the title of the book is It Hot in Here or Is It Just Me? 7 Steps to Dramatically Decrease Your Menopausal Symptoms. And so I know a lot of us over the age of 40 are in the same boat where we're getting the belly bloat, the hot flashes, the night sweats, and thank goodness I have found some tools to heal my symptoms. And so this book is my way of helping my community so that they don't have to suffer the way I did.
Oh my God, I'm telling you, I'm right in the thick of it. And it's like having a personal summer, like in the middle of winter. I'm like, have the window open and I'm sleeping on top of the covers. My husband's like, it's freezing in here. I'm like, not for me. So,
And let me ask, do you do the whole like one leg out, like onto one leg on top of the blanket?
One leg out. You got to have one leg out, one leg in case you change, because in like a minute you're hot and then you're freezing. So
you are not alone. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
That was very
how do we know? It's kind of funny. I think originally because I'm kind of perimenopausal, almost menopause, and the symptoms sneak up on you. Like things come up and you're not sure like what this is. And then I read later and I'm like, that is linked to it too. Like, I'll tell you one thing that I got like out of the blue, like some kind of weird TMJ thing. And I read and they're like, yeah, it's from the hormones of menopause.
Now that is a new one to me. I had not heard of that. Yeah. But people
get all kinds of crazy stuff that you think you're crazy.
And I love
crazy,
that you
say crazy.
Because that's one of my main messages to this community is you are not crazy and it is not in your head. And sadly, there's not a ton of research on menopause at this point. But yes, to your point, people have complained to me about anxiety and depression. And those are 2 things that are not well researched. However, I'm hearing it so much that I'm like, it has to be related to menopause. And so, yeah, TMJ does not surprise me.
What's the first step? Like, what do so you recognize you're having these symptoms. They're very physical too, right? Like it's not so that you could just kind of hide, like you have a little inner thought. It's like you have these physical symptoms too. Where do you start to begin to turn that corner and just get your life back?
I love that question. And so I promise to answer you directly, but the first thing that pops up for me as you ask that is self-advocacy. I cannot stress enough, like, again, you are not crazy. If you find changes happening in your body, go to your doctor. And when your doctor says, oh, no, that's just because you're aging, or, oh, no, then you either find another doctor or you ask that doctor a lot more questions, because that was my experience. I was actually, previous to culinary nutrition, I worked in the investment banking world. And about 4 years ago, I remember coming into the office of my managers at that point. And long story short, I will just tell you, I'm looking across, at these 2 men from me, and the sweat, like the sheet of sweat was coming down my face, coming down my back. And so that was my first key, like, that's not normal. And stress is actually one of the things that can start off a hot flash. And so I asked my women to look at that as well. Like if you have a high stress life, like let's look at some ways to minimize that stress so that we can minimize the hot splashes and the night sweats. But all that to say, after that experience, in the office with my managers, very embarrassing. I went to my doctor and she's like, oh no, you're too young. So I was only like 46, 47 at the time. I'm 50 now. And I'm like, well, something's wrong. And so I just kept asking for more tests and more tests. And sure enough, she's like, oh, here it is. And she tested my blood and it's the FSH levels. And so If you ask your OBGYN about your FSH levels, then that should absolutely give you some answers on whether or not you're in perimenopause and or full-blown menopause.
Wow. Yeah, I do think it's one of those things that kind of creeps up on you. And then you're like, wow, what's happening here? So you're a nutritionist. Is it about what we eat? Do we need bioidentical hormones? Like, I mean, I know these are a lot of the questions that are out there. What is your feedback on some of the different options that are out there, and what do you think works?
Yes. So in the digital guide, is it hot in here or is it me? I absolutely touch on both of those. So as a nutritionist, of course, I'm a bit biased, but yes, nutrition I think is like 80% of the game, but it's also fitness. And I talk about some creative ways to get fitness in, because if we're moving our bodies, we're moving those hormonal messengers throughout and they're getting into the right places in our brain. And then it's also mindfulness, meditation to help eliminate that stress, because the lower stress we have, the better chance our hormones have of getting to where they need to get to help us feel good in our bodies.
So give me some real specific tips. Like, I love it where on the Big Meow, if people walk away, they're like, okay, I'm going to go do these 3 things. So what's something in physical fitness, what's something in mindfulness, and what's something like some kind of power breakfast or power lunch that's a real hormone balancer?
Yes. One thing that may or may not surprise you is water. I want to give an alert to anyone who's listening. I recommend that you take your body weight, split that in half, and that should be the amount of ounces of water you're drinking as a minimum every day. And so let's just say that you're 150 pounds. You split that in half. So that's 75 ounces that you want a minimum of. You see, I have my water bottle here. And the reason why I stress this so much, and I do talk about it in my book, is because a lot of us don't necessarily tune in. Like, I am so guilty. I was at the doctor just last month for my annual checkup, and it turned out I was using my weight from like 5 years ago, which by the way was 20 pounds less. And so I've been dehydrated all this time. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like me as a nutritionist who talks about this literally every day, I wasn't getting enough water in my body. So water is the number one tip I would share with you.
Okay.
As far as fitness, we have to make it fun. I mean, any woman over 40, like, we pretty much have our life routines done, and we definitely don't like people yelling at us, telling us what to do. So like the drill sergeant, boot camps, that typically doesn't work for a lot of us. It doesn't work for me. And so I personally have made it a point to, instead of happy hours, I'll ask girlfriends if they want to do, a walk around the park instead, and or group fitness classes at my gym, and or if I'm on my, stationary bike in the basement, I'll play like really jamming music that I might not play all the time. And so just making fitness fun. So
You got the Lizzo going on.
I love Lizzo. Yes. I love that you love her as well. Yes.
She's one of my workout girls.
Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, I love that you just pointed that out, is dancing in the kitchen. So while you're cooking, because I know not a lot of us love to cook. And at the time of this recording, we're in the heat of summer and people don't always like to be in the kitchen, and that's fine. I will just say, perhaps if you bring fun music and a little bit of movement, perhaps you might look forward to being in the kitchen a little bit more.
You are listening to the Big Meow podcast, empowering women entrepreneurs to share their voices, make an impact, and transform the world in a positive way. Sponsored by Orange Cat Content Marketing Agency.
I guess the question I'm having is, how long does this have to last, right? Like, I mean, I think that we kind of get caught up in it, and we're like, you go to different people and they say, oh yeah, this is your new normal. But I know that doesn't have to be true. So if you want to really pivot on this and bring it back into something that's manageable, what is that journey like? How long does that take?
Yes. So the great news is, for most of us, I know I don't have a crystal ball, I can't claim this for everybody,
right?
But
yeah.
For most of us, this is a temporary period. Sadly, some people do stay in menopause through their 70s, and I just pray that that's not me or you.
You mean like perimenopause? Like they're still kind of getting the occasional
Not
period?
not the peri, no.
Oh.
The perimenopause typically is like a 2 to 5 year period for most
Oh,
women.
man.
So I like to just remind people that, if you look even 5 years ago, like it's hard to remember, like that time does go by relatively fast. Like it might not feel like it when you're in it, when you're having all these symptoms. However, we won't be here forever. So that's the good news. And if you use some of the tools that I mentioned in the book, and I walk you step by step, I try to hold your hand through this guide. It's my hope and my promise to you that you absolutely will alleviate some of those symptoms.
Yeah.
Another
Yes.
thing I want to add, because I'm kind of talking on the dark side of, the symptoms, and it's rough and it's hard. One of the beautiful things I want to highlight about menopause is, hey, a lot of us are in beautiful transitions. Like we're saying, I no longer want to work in this job that's like sucking the life out of me. And so we're making new choices there. Or I no longer want to be in this relationship that's been sucking the life out of me. Or, hey, my kid is moving out of the house. And so this is my time to pay attention to myself and I have more freedom. So, menopause is not all bad. Like there's some beautiful things about this time of our lives as well.
Yeah. My last one just left out of 4 and about a year ago. Maybe now, actually, maybe it's been 2 years. And it's really been interesting. It does bring up this soul searching where you're like, what do I want to do next? Like I have time, I have space, I don't think they're coming. I know, what to do. So I do agree with you, Michelle, that it's just this amazing time to reflect and make decisions about what is next and how do I want to do things, and circling back or letting go, a little bit of both maybe. And so I think that I agree that it is a really big opportunity to recalibrate and decide what it is. And I do think also with menopause comes wisdom, and also this whole concept of boundaries.
Yes.
And it's like, I can say no to that, or I can let that chapter end and start something new.
Anytime I hear it, it's always an amazing reminder. So for our listeners who may also need this reminder, that no is a complete sentence.
Yeah, I know.
It just lights me up. Like that is freedom for me. Yes. I can say no to what I no longer enjoy doing in my world. So yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes like there's some toxic things that go on in our lives that we allow, because not necessarily because we don't have the power to tell them not to be there, but sometimes I think we're so busy, we just can't address it. So we kind of let it continue. And, now, especially if you're an empty nester or whatever, you're kind of like, no, I can't afford the luxury of allowing those situations to continue and persist. So it's like, whether it's some kind of habit that you have, or some way even that you're eating, or people that are in your life, or clients that you work with, I have definitely noticed, at least in myself, it's like, I have choices and I maybe just don't have to put up with this one.
Good for you. Good for you. And I'll also add on to what you're saying. I was listening to a Glennon Doyle podcast the other day, and something she said hit home that relates to exactly what you're saying, which is when people invite her to an event, she's like, if I don't want to do that event tomorrow, then I'm not going to commit to that event in a month. Because a lot of times I think we do say yes to things like, yeah, by the time we get there, I'll be ready, or I'll want to do that. But she's like, if I don't want to do that, tomorrow, the answer is just a straight up no. And so I've been practicing that. And it's so real just to kind of step back and look at some of the events and the opportunities I've said yes to because I feel like I should do that, or, this might help my career, or whatever whatever it may be. But when I really look at it a little bit closer, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. So no, thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. No, thank you. So no is a sentence, but no, thank you is a little bit of a kinder sentence. Maybe.
There you go. Add a little sweetness to it.
Add a little sugar sweetness. So, it's the middle of summer. We're all busy on the go. Some of us, you said, don't like to cook. I mean, you're a nutritionist. What are some quick things that we can just make sure we have in our fridge for all of us busy entrepreneurs, so that if we need to grab something, we're getting the best, highest impact, with that that meal. Because a lot of us need to eat these smaller meals, or we feel better eating smaller meals, but there's not always, I find when I'm really busy, I don't even know that I always have the best, fastest grab, ready to go in the kitchen.
Yes. So I have a few snacks listed on my website at michellefox.com in the shop area. And one of those are Chomp's meat sticks. I know some of us are vegetarians, so I'll get to you in a moment. But if you like meat like I do, because it helps my blood sugar stay balanced, they're organic, they're amazing. So just having those in my purse as I'm putting in my purse across the room, I have them in my car so that we don't.
Are they like beef jerky, or what are they?
No, they're like, I don't even know how to explain it. They're just delicious, but they come in like a stick like this.
They're called Chomps.
Yeah, so CHOMPS, Chomps meat sticks. They come in amazing flavors. The taco seasoning is my favorite.
Where do you get those?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Where do you get them? Are they like?
Oh, yeah. Well, you get 10% off if you go to michellefox.com. You'll see the links there. But you can also just go directly to chomps.com and see all their different flavors. Resist bars. They're the only protein bars I recommend to my clients because they are 0 sugar, no gluten, no dairy, and they're really delicious. You can also find those there. But as far as the meals that you can actually either snack through the day or have for lunch or dinner, cruciferous veggies. So whether you're in perimenopause, menopause, or none of the above, cruciferous veggies are our friends because they're amazing detoxifiers.
I like broccoli and cauliflower and stuff like that.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, so the broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage.
All the cabbages.
Yes, all the cabbages. And I simply put a little, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, put some sea salt, mix them in a bowl, put them on a plate or a baking sheet, bake them for 25 minutes. And they're just, they're so delicious, any time of the day. So that's just super easy to throw in. But along those lines, any kind of sheet pan meal, I like to say, go to Dr. Google, type in sheet pan. You're going to come up with a gazillion recipes that can be fun, change up your flavor profiles. So it goes back to the idea of having fun in the kitchen, but sheet pan meals are really easy to kind of mix together, throw in the oven, and you're done. And so
my kiddo, he's the actor and he's doing this program this summer. He's like, I have no time to cook. And I just Googled and sent him a bunch of sheet pan meals, but it never occurred to me I could eat those myself. Oh. Some of them look really good. They've got salmon sheet pan and a chicken sheet pan and all with the roasted vegetables and stuff. They all look great.
Well, and kudos to you, Mama, for even thinking of that. So good job.
I don't know. I seem to think about that.
So those sheet pan meals typically create large meals. So you have leftovers for lunch. And so to my busy professionals, eat those leftovers for lunch the next day and or breakfast so that you're getting your protein, your fiber, and your healthy fats, which are going to feed your brain. And by the way, balance your hormones. And so yes to sheet pan meals.
I love that. So what's next for you, Michelle?
Thank you for asking. So I'm really excited. In October, we are heading to the Dominican Republic. I'm hosting a gut health retreat there. And then the following February, I will be hosting 8 women over 40. So most of us perimenopause and menopause. And we'll be in Costa Rica learning how to not only balance our hormones, but just to find more ease and peace in our life. So I'm excited to just pour into women in person.
I love it. I love it. I want to hear all about that. So how can we find out about your events? Are there still spaces available?
Absolutely. You can go to michellefox.com/events and you'll see all the retreats that I'm hosting there and also the workshops. I love teaching cooking workshops and also nutrition workshops. So you'll see the information over at michellefox.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Michelle, for being on the Big Meow. I'm going to go to your website and check out your recipes. And it's a lot of good reminders today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I always love to be in community with like-minded women. So thank you for this.
Absolutely.
Are you looking for authentic connections, business mentorship, and a supportive community? Join C.A.T.S Network. Thank you for listening to the Big Meow podcast. Please subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share this episode with your community.